commander unit where soldiers would listen to me. I can't get you to put your shoes on. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
You should follow a time schedule.
Exactly. Got to be on time or early. You quickly figure out what's important and what's not. And if it means that we're not leaving the house on time because we need to feel some feelings, that's okay. I was allocated to the Corps of Engineers as a combat engineer, which they deal with everything from rapid construction of bridges on a battlefield through to explosive ordnance disposal, bomb disposal, minefield clearance. Science and engineering should override the political ideology. It's like the maths equation. It's either right or it's wrong.
How does science and then motherhood work together?
I actually think it naturally comes together because kids are scientists. They are constantly experimenting. For a long time, I really wasn't confident in how I led, almost putting on this mask all the time. And then I had an epiphany and I was like, maybe they just want me to be my best version of myself and that'll make me a better leader.
Before we get started, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode of our cutting-edge contemporary conversations. Thank you.
Welcome, Jasmin. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Dev. How are you?
Thank you, and thank you for you being the first one to bring a baby on the set or in our studio. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. My baby comes along to a lot of things with me at the moment.
Lovely little boy, Remy.
Little Remy, yeah.
Hi, Remy. Hi, Remy. It'll be a different kind of a conversation today, not because we have a little child here. But I'm very keen to know your background and your history, and you've done a lot in the armed forces. Could you take us through a bit of your journey and a bit of your life and your movement across Australia?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Sydney. I'm the eldest of 5 kids. And as the eldest daughter...
The class teacher.
That's right.
The one who makes the rules.
The one who makes the rules and sets the standard. Has a lot of pressure on them as well. So I grew up in this big family. We moved to the Gold Coast when I was in high school, so did a lot of my teenage years growing up on the Gold Coast, near the beach, enjoying the sun, the surf. And then at 18 in year 12 decided there were 2 courses in life. I was either going to go to performing arts school and become an actor or join the army. And for some reason on the day I picked army, and 22 years later had a really great career in the army as a combat engineer officer. I call myself a nerd by trade. I studied physics and chemistry as an undergrad, and then went up and did nuclear engineering as a postgrad, and have enjoyed science and how science supports us practically every day and in every facet of life. I often have arguments with my partner that physics explains absolutely everything.
Yeah.
He's a chemistry nerd, so he disagrees and says chemicals do it all, but it's physics that explains the world. Left the army 2 years ago now. It's almost exactly to the day 2 years ago, and have started my own business, and I've been heavily involved in the Australian nuclear scene since then, which has been exciting. I have run for the last 5 years. I've been the president of Women in Nuclear Australia, which is a not-for-profit professional organisation about helping women in the nuclear industry. Yeah, and that has been a really enjoyable facet of my career, being involved with women in nuclear.
Wow. And journey from, can you talk about a bit more nuclear science and nuclear engineering and your work with the army? Was that the same stream of work which you did? And then how have you been a nuclear engineer all your life?
So, in the army, when you join up as an officer, you don't get allocated a trade until after you finish your military training. And so because I had a background in physics, chemistry, I wanted to be able to use that. And so I was allocated to the Corps of Engineers as a combat engineer, which they deal with everything from rapid construction of bridges on a battlefield through to explosive ordnance disposal, bomb disposal, minefield clearance, and countering chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear and explosive threats. And that's really what I was passionate about. How do you protect soldiers on the battlefield from those threats? How do you deny those threats coming into our country. And so I was able to use my science brain plus my army skills in that role. And that's where I got really fascinated by nuclear science and specifically how to detect and prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, because Australia historically has been very vocal about being anti-nuclear weapons. We were tested on in the 50s and 60s, and that's a lot of baggage that we still carry around. And so that's something I was really fascinated by. And how do you still have peaceful nuclear technologies but make sure that it can't be then weaponized and used by people that are trying to do unkind things to us as a society. Yeah.
So how can you think about having nuclear not from an offense or a defense point of view? Is that the mindset you're talking about?
Yeah, it is. How do we still promote things like nuclear power and energy and nuclear medicine and be able to do that in a way that doesn't expose that material to be exploited? Because there are so many amazing benefits of nuclear science. Most Australians will have a nuclear medicine procedure in their lifetime. And we need to be able to allow that to happen without the risks of material going missing and getting into untoward hands. And so that was something as I left Army that I wanted to continue doing because nuclear science is fascinating. Atoms are fascinating. The things they can do and create are phenomenal. Yeah.
Can you oversimplify fission and fusion and broad nuclear science?
Yeah, so fission is what is used predominantly in power reactors, research reactors around the world. It is where you get an atom, and in this case it's uranium. Uranium is bombarded by neutrons in a reactor core and they split. And when those atoms split, they release this vast amount of energy, and that energy is in the form of other neutrons and thermal heat. And it is the heat we use to boil the water to spin a turbine to create electricity in the power sense. Fusion, however, uses light atoms, so things like helium or hydrogen, and it fuses them together like the sun, and again creates so much heat and energy in that reaction. And so we are just replicating naturally occurring events through fission and fusion to create electricity, to create energy, which I think is just amazing that I keep a close eye on the fusion world because I find that pretty fascinating. That is trying to replicate the sun on Earth. And that's some amazing science to be able to do that. Yeah.
Just for everybody, it's part 2. Because Remy was not feeling comfortable without mum, so he has to come back. The mum slap.
Yeah.
The best place in town.
Apparently.
Let's digress the topic. How's being a mother to you? How are you enjoying motherhood?
It's exhausting, but it is rewarding. But you seem to run on just caffeine and adrenaline all the time.
All the time.
So this is my second time around, so I knew what I was getting into.
It was a conscious decision.
Conscious decision.
That yes, I can do it.
Yes, I can do that. Yeah. It's interesting. I think parenting is a challenge for anybody, right? Because you get this child, no instruction manual, and as someone who has been in the military for such a long time, I want to know how things work. Yeah, I want structure. I want to have control. I want people to listen to me. I have a 5-year-old. She doesn't listen to me. I used to command a unit where soldiers would listen to me. I can't get you to put your shoes on. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
You should follow a time schedule.
Time schedule, exactly. We've got to be on time or early.
Yeah, clean the shoes.
Yeah, kids don't do that.
You don't do that.
No. So they teach you patience. And
a new virtue.
Yes. And how to reprioritise. I think you quickly figure out what's important and what's not. And if it means that we're not leaving the house on time because we need to feel some feelings, then that's okay. Yeah.
So how does science and then motherhood works together? How can you bring being a mum and being a scientist or being an engineer comes together?
Well, I actually think it naturally comes together because kids are scientists. They are constantly experimenting. And I find it fascinating watching Remy experiment with his hands. He's discovered his hands.
Discovered.
What do these do? Yeah. What do they do? Oh, I can stick them in my mouth. Oh, I don't like when they push them in my mouth too far, but I like chewing on them. And so it's funny looking at the lens of children as scientists, seeing what experiments they're trying, what's working for them and what's not, is fascinating. Because how else are we learning if it's not through experimenting and trying things and seeing what we like and seeing what we don't like? Yeah.
Trying and failing early.
Yeah.
And then so that you don't fail at a bigger scale.
Yeah,
Fail
exactly.
soon, fail early, fail hard.
And fail in a safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love seeing my daughter experiment. As long as it's not destroying the house, it's fine.
She won't do a fusion.
Yeah. Well, she's quite well educated on nuclear. It's quite fascinating. I feel sorry for her future science teachers.
And coming back to science and nuclear science specifically, the mathematical equation, maths, I was telling Barney today, my 6-year-old, that maths don't lie.
Yeah.
It's true or a false, it's a 1 or a 0, it's a right answer. There's
Yeah.
only many ways of getting to the right answer, but
There's only one answer.
One answer. So maths don't lie. So the mathematical equation we've been toying with, most of the globe is talking about net zero.
Oh, yeah.
So the mathematical equation to achieve net zero, and what's the premise, and mathematically could be achieved, or scientifically could be achieved the space of net zero?
So I think it's an interesting concept, because I think if we want to get to as close to a true zero as possible, we need to think more broadly about the supply chains and things that go into producing the power and energy and transportation systems we use. I think the term net zero gets thrown around a lot in Australia and gets linked to things like renewable energy, where we don't scratch the surface and go, okay, so how many rare earths and minerals are in solar panels, wind turbines? What's the end of life of these systems? And how much of that is contributing to a carbon footprint versus other energy types and fuel types? Because we often don't talk about transportation much as well, whilst we talk about electrifying cars.
And when you want to have solar panels on large farmlands, you have to clear so much land and trees, and so much carbon sequestered already in those.
Exactly. Yeah, so I don't think we've really, in Australia, looked at the whole system to understand how do we truly get close to zero, and not just a net zero and not a superficial look at net zero. Because I don't think that's fair on the Australian public to give them a false indication of what zero would be.
I think sometimes the politics takes over the science.
Oh, definitely.
Why can't we, when we talk science, we should focus only on science, not on the politics of it.
Yeah,
and it should be bipartisan on that front at least.
Yeah, I think things like energy systems can't be politicised, because we're making decisions that we want to endure for generations.
Yeah.
We don't want an energy system that lasts a 4-year election cycle and then has to be redone.
Yeah.
That's not viable for us. That's not viable for the economy. Investors who want to be able to invest in technologies need some assurance and certainty.
Yeah.
And I think when it's a technical thing like an energy system, the science and engineering should override the political ideology.
Yeah.
There are other parts of the country that can be highly politicised, things like social policy.
Yeah.
Whilst we don't want it changing every 4 years, it probably does need a refresh as government changes. But as a scientist turned engineer, it really frustrates me when we politicise things where you can't challenge the science and engineering. It's like the maths equation. It's either right or it's not. So you'll never see me in politics because of that reason. Too much grey.
Too straight. Too black and white. Too 1 and 0.
That's it.
There's only one equation. Because it's a known fact that, if the whole idea is to create prosperity for Australians, if the whole intention is to lift up the living standards with time, slowly and steadily, by giving us everybody the right opportunity in terms of accessing energy, housing, all those things are needed to have a uplifting standards, one thing which we have seen globally and across history also, countries which consume more power are the ones who will create more wealth for their residents. And we are tapering because in the new age of AI, one needs to consume more energy because it's energy intensive.
Yeah.
How is the energy trajectory of being energy surplus or producing more energy as a country? How do you see that equation working for us?
So a lot of the predictions on Australia's energy usage often over-predict how much we use, and you can see in the Australian energy operator market,
AEMO.
Their predictions often we under-subscribe in our energy usage. That's all pre-AI data centre usage, where I think we will see a surge. Plus, as we see coal exiting the system, it puts real pressure on energy generation, full stop. And so my fear is that if we don't have a solid replacement for our current coal and gas usage, our energy will taper off, not because we're smarter in how we're using energy, because we will see big manufacturing and industry and data centers and AI, big tech, all disappear.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw in Germany when they shut down their nuclear power plants. Their electricity prices went up, and because of that, a lot of industry left and went to other parts of Europe that had cheaper electricity. Because that's probably one of their highest operational costs in manufacturing is how much are they paying for the energy to produce the things they are doing. And so that's why I think we need to have a serious look at the holistic energy system in Australia and how do we support domestic use. And we've proven, especially here in WA, that our high penetration of renewables is good for domestic use, and we can temper how we use our energy, but it doesn't necessarily support industry and big tech. So now how do we address a carbon neutral energy system to support big tech, to support manufacturing, to support the mining and industrial sectors, because that's what will make us prosperous as a nation. Not just being smart with how we use electricity domestically. That is only a small piece of the puzzle.
And because carbon is everything.
Yeah,
So how can so if you can also a bit more oversimplify the idea of being carbon neutral and on net zero as well, those two terms.
Yeah, so being carbon neutral is about the whole system. So I, as a nuclear nerd, look quite detailed at the nuclear power sector, and there's a really great website called Our World in Data that has weighed up all the electricity generation systems and how much carbon they use in the full cycle of the lifetime of that electricity generation. And something like nuclear, which uses not a lot of rare earths and minerals, it uses a lot of concrete in the build, it uses uranium in the fuel, it'll utilise some metals in the structure, versus things like solar panels or hydro that do have some reliance on critical minerals. How those minerals are extracted all impacts the carbon footprint of that electricity source, versus the net zero argument, which is more about the usage of the electricity and whether that is introducing new amounts of carbon into the system in its power generation rather than its full cycle.
Yeah. In terms of your observation, because if we have to sustain the next generation of, the next round of growth, which is coming through the gaps of AI and data centers and more consumption of power, we don't want to limit ourselves to one energy source. So what's the energy system looks like? What's the best minds telling us that what should be the new energy system look like to sustain the next round of economic growth? Because it's not energy growth. Growth in energy is economic growth and GDP and per capita GDP as well. Yeah.
So all the electrical engineers and systems engineers I talk to about this all say it has to be an everything approach. You can't just put one energy system down, invest everything in it, and it'll do the lot. So I'd see a balance of hydro that we already have existing, predominantly on the east coast. We're a bit too flat over here in the west for hydro. nuclear to support the baseload energy and to be able to support reducing the coal use. You've got your solar for domestic use. You've got your wind in areas where wind is reliable. There are lots of parts of Australia where the wind is not reliable and not suitable. And then having the option of having peaking gas when that is required, but in time not having to have such a heavy reliance on gas without carbon capture storage. I think that's a big part that needs investment as well to ensure that we are still being responsible in how we're using
So you're suggesting nuclear as base load and then everything else?
and everything else, yeah. And the joy of having something that is a reliable energy system is that you can now put other quite energy intensive systems linked to that. And I'll use water desalination as an example here. So AI also uses a lot of water. And I know there's lots of concerns, especially in Australia where water is such a precious resource.
Yeah.
Having something like desal being able to support an AI centre as well as providing its power and energy is phenomenal. And I think that supports economic prosperity because you are now not limiting the size of these.
There are similar power plants in the US as well who do desal and power.
Yes, it's a similar sort of thing. Yeah, and I think that's why we're seeing big tech invest quite heavily in nuclear power and wanting to own their own power stations to give that assured power supply at an assured cost. Because if that's one of their biggest costs, they want to be able to control what those costs are and not have a market that fluctuates so significantly and impacts their bottom line, essentially.
And what do you see from an OECD slash the West, the so-called West? How have energy systems evolved? If you can give us a bit of a history lesson in the last 4 or 5 decades post World War.
Yeah.
How has the energy systems evolved in your observation?
Yeah, so the nuclear energy systems.
Broader board. Energy sources and systems overall.
So I would say that there was a lot of money invested in traditional large-scale nuclear power plants post World War II, around the 70s, 80s, up until Chernobyl, where we saw a huge drop-off on nuclear power. Over that time, it was only really a handful of countries that still continued to do nuclear builds, like we saw in France, South Korea. They continued to build reactors through till this day. But what we've seen in the West is that as new nuclear builds start popping up because the demands for higher energy have come through, the industry is getting smarter in how it's employing that technology, and it has learnt lessons from a lot of the accidents and incidents that have occurred in the past, and things like passive safety measures are now mandatory in designs, as well as to be able to ensure you can get a licensed reactor site, you need to do that as well. We haven't necessarily seen evolutions like that in other power generations. So let's say coal-fired plants, for example, they've been pretty similar since the dawn of time. They've been the working horse of the energy system all over the world and still are in a lot of countries. It is the dominant. We've seen, other traditional energy sources not be challenged and not have to evolve as much because society hasn't really challenged them to force them to be safer or anything like that, or be able to have less environmental impact, for example. Where we've seen solar and wind increase, the systems have got more efficient, but how they're produced hasn't necessarily. We still get a lot of our solar done offshore in China, same with our wind turbines. There's not a lot of domestic production of that because it's still a really difficult thing to make. It's not as simple as just a few solar cells soldered together on a plank and put it on a roof. Like, there's some complexity to make these efficient. And so I think whilst we're seeing how to generate electricity evolve, and this is me showing my bias, right? I think how we've seen the nuclear industry evolve to make systems more socially viable has been quite significant.
From a point of view, again, in the last federal election was one of the key points when one of the political parties says, line in the sand, we want to go nuclear. knowing that we have a moratorium in the state here.
Yeah.
So how do you see that from a leadership point of view in terms of taking that decision, and then the politics and the science either coming together, or which worked well in a way, didn't work well in some ways?
Yeah. Interesting case study, right?
Yes.
I think the messaging around nuclear was quite interesting. I'm all for Australia lifting the moratorium on nuclear energy. I think that allows for a more holistic look at our energy system to occur. But I also think that there's a heap of social licence that needs to be built for Australians to find nuclear energy palatable. And the opposition citing sites where they wanted to put nuclear power plants, I think, was quite risky in gaining that social licence. There's method to the madness there. Like, there is good evidence that traditional coal-fired plants make for really great new nuclear builds. It has the infrastructure there. It has the workforce there. I think it's over 75% of jobs in a coal-fired plant can be transferred to a nuclear power plant. So
that's why we had Collie.
There's logic. Yeah, that's why Collie was picked from Western Australia. There's logic behind that. However, the difference between a coal community and a nuclear community is that especially in the Australian context, the people need to be comfortable with having a nuclear power plant in their community.
Not in my backyard, kind of.
Yeah.
Argument.
So what we've seen, and this isn't for a power plant, this is more for a waste facility in Canada. What we saw was the Canadian government engaged communities, lots of different communities, educated them on what this waste facility would be, and then those communities would bid on who wanted it in their town because they could see the jobs that it created and the longevity of their townships there. That's what I think we need to do if we go down the nuclear plan as well, is communities get educated and engaged on what nuclear technology is, what the kind of jobs are, and then they say, yes, we want this. We want our families to have long, well-paid jobs into the future, and we want to support the Australian people by providing their power and energy. Be really proud of that. And I think had they messaged it a bit differently, maybe the conversation would have been a bit different around nuclear. But
could have more lead up in terms of getting engaged, in terms of more lead up for having engagement with the communities to build a social license. Probably that might.
Well, it should have been more broader than just a few sites that were picked.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I truly believe there were other issues that made them lose the election. I don't think nuclear was the only one. But from the nuclear energy
probably
perspective,
nuclear will take the blame.
Nuclear will take the blame because it often does. It is seen as this beast that can just be blamed for everything going wrong, even though it has provided a lot of clean energy globally for a very long time, for over 70 years, and in our context has saved people's lives from medical intervention using nuclear medicine isotopes. So poor nuclear gets a bad rap all the time. It kind of needs a rebrand. If anyone's really good at marketing something that's gone really wrong, maybe pick up nuclear and see.
Okay, change the name. Change the name.
A few people have mentioned that. And they're like, well, what else would you call it? Atomic power? I don't know.
I'll change the logo.
Change the logo, yeah.
I want to shift gear a bit onto, because you have worked in a different a structure of what does leadership mean to you, and how has leadership come to you in terms of naturally as a growing up in a family of 5, being the eldest and the eldest son on the whole family, as in the extended family.
No pressure.
Nope. I had all the pressure in terms of he has to be the best in all, and everybody else, no pressure. Everybody's below average.
Yeah.
So how does leadership come to you naturally from or the context of armed forces, being an engineer, the family structures, and the people around you?
Yeah, so I think being forced into a family leadership position as the eldest child really I guess, set the foundations on how do you influence and shape people to do things. Because that's really leadership. You were trying to influence people to do the things you need to achieve. And it wasn't until I think I'd been in the army for about 10, 12 years when I finally got confident as a leader. And maybe it's a young person's thing, maybe it's a young woman in a male-dominated environment thing, but for a long time I really wasn't confident in how I led, and would put on a lot of different hats thinking that's what my team wanted me to be or look like or sound, and it wasn't my authentic self. And yes, the mission was achieved, I got results, but at the end of the day it was exhausting because you're almost putting on this mask all the time. And then I had an epiphany, and I was like, hang on a second, soldiers are human, I'm human.
I'm human. That's an epiphany.
Yeah, maybe they just want me to be my best version of myself, and that'll make me a better leader. And so a lot of those walls came down. I started dressing the way I felt comfortable, and it pushed the boundaries. Like a lot of my male colleagues would get a bit frustrated. So we have this rule in the mess. You wear a certain standard. It's collared shirts, it's tailored slacks, it's clean shoes, and it'd have and female equivalent. And there wasn't really a determined female equivalent, but I would take advantage of that. It'd be great dresses and skirts and heels and like funky kind of outfits, and people would be like, oh, but does it match my R.M. Williams matching shirt and pants combination? And it kind of pushed the boundaries a bit. But that was me. That was my authentic self. And because I was more comfortable in that guise, I was able to get the best out of my people because they could then be themselves as well.
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time to get to that point. And now I love leading. I love leading teams that are passionate about the work they do. And I love seeing people being comfortable being in their own skin, whether that's their kooky self, in how they act, dress, if they bring crazy ideas to the table. I love that. I think that's amazing. That's how you truly harness diversity as a superpower, is in allowing people to be diverse. Because I think if we were all the same, if we all led the same, if we all talked the same and had the same ideas, we would never be able to solve complex problems. We would be really great at solving the same simple problem over and over and over again. Yes, it's a bit of my leadership journey.
Off the camera, we were talking about AI and how you've been having fun with AI. AI has been funny with everybody. So the way we use with my little one, we just write pieces of poetry. So our prompts are, we went there, we did this and this, and we did. So we give a whole narrative of, for example, a holiday trip. And then, it'll throw a rhythmic poetry on that holiday trip. So that's how we're using in the family.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And how are you using it?
So I use it to help remove emotion from emails or responses to questions. As an engineer and scientist, I find I can be quite blunt in my approach to things. And so how I've experimented with AI is, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. And often it's, if I'm a bit frustrated, I'm like, can you temper this to make it a bit more professional sounding or a bit less emotive? It's great for that. I did try experimenting with it for work purposes, and the reliability is just not there yet to use it as like a research assistant. I think it draws upon a lot of tedious links at times. So unless you can control the database it's searching and you're doing something quite specific, I think there's a bit of risk in that. But helping temper emails, perfect. I've
never observed that use case before, that you are going for a hardcore strong email and you say, just tone it down for me.
Let's soften it a bit.
Perfect. And then coming back to nuclear side of it, can you give me a couple of case studies of countries who have utilized energy systems to stabilize the costs for for consumers in the front end.
Oh yeah.
And it's make sure that everybody is not paying too much for power.
Yeah.
Because power has become, we consume power all the time in many ways and forms.
Yeah.
We don't want people to restrict the consumption of power because they have needs.
Yeah.
So any case studies of countries who have, had energy surpluses and then given back to the consumers or citizens at low cost power.
Yeah, so nuclear, whilst its capital costs up front are quite expensive, it's very cheap operationally to run. So once a nuclear power plant switches on and puts electrons on the grid, it is earning large amounts of money. So some case studies. So Finland recently built quite a large nuclear power plant, which went over budget and over time. But as soon as it was delivering electrons on the grid, the power bills in Finland went down. And that's because it was putting reliable electricity onto a grid, reducing their reliance to import energy from other systems. France is another case study. So France has got quite a heavy penetration of nuclear in its energy system. It does have renewables as well, and the nuclear supports those renewables. But because of that large nuclear base, they're able to export a lot of energy to other countries surrounding them and earn money off that, which means that the French population actually doesn't pay a lot in regards to its electricity prices. And so what you see with nuclear, because it is an enduring energy system, you're not talking about a 20-year and you're having to replace, you're talking 60, 80, for even some power plants, they're thinking up to 100-year lifetime where it'll be producing electricity, and with its operational costs really being people to run the reactor, fuel is a very low cost there. It's able to produce a lot of electricity quite cheaply, which means the cost to consumers is a lot less. And because it is energy dense and you've got one site there that you can get the power out, you're not spending a lot of money on transmission and distribution lines as opposed to energy sources that aren't as dense, where you're having to spread it over large areas of land and then having to get that energy to a transmission and distribution system and then out for consumers. And so that's where you see some of those costs being managed as well in the transmission and distribution system.
But how do you, a power plant project which goes off 60, 80 years versus a political cycle which goes off 3 years and 4 years. So you need to have quick gains.
So it has to be bipartisan. And I think countries that we've seen succeeded at being bipartisan, the UK, all sides of parliament support nuclear. The US, that's one of very little things that both sides of parliament agree on. In Finland, it was actually the Finnish Greens Party that brought nuclear to the table because they wanted to reduce the carbon footprint and saw nuclear as that viable option. And so if we're going to do this seriously in Australia, it needs to be bipartisan. And to be honest, I'm not a political analyst, but Nuke Jazz can see the benefits for all political parties. It's got strong jobs, high-paying jobs, highly unionised jobs, which is a very Labor voter base. It is green, clean energy, which supports a Greens push. And then from a Liberal coalition perspective, it supports big business and industry. And so it surprises me that it is so politicised when the benefits of nuclear across all parts of society. Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't know how you break that and get parties to be bipartisan on big issues like that. But
can you talk about case studies on how countries have managed the nuclear waste post the energy production? And then we can just talk about a couple of countries and how have they managed waste and make sure that the citizens are not that aware of or that scared about the waste coming back to their water lines or other ways and forms, any leakages. Yeah,
so waste is a fascinating discussion because we already have radioactive waste in Australia, and so we need to come up with a long-term solution, whether we go down a power and energy path anyway. So waste is broken into 3 broad categories. There's low-level waste, which is really operational equipment, gloves, rags, overalls, used in nuclear medicine production and procedures. It has a short half-life, meaning that it is no longer radioactive after only a few years. and often that just needs storage, and then it can be disposed of like any other form of waste. Intermediate and higher level waste need a bit more serious management, and high level waste is really used nuclear fuel. It's hot and needs to be cooled in a reactor before it's packaged up. In countries like the USA, they put it in dry storage casks, and then best practice is to put it into a deep geological repository. Other countries like France recycle their used fuel. So they put it through a processing plant, they remove, so over 90% of used fuel can be turned into other forms of fuel. So they'll recycle it, remove the uranium, plutonium, put it in other fuel forms, and then the leftover fission products will form intermediate level waste, which needs to be disposed of securely and safely in a near surface geological repository. The only country that has fully grappled with high level waste is Finland. Again, they're probably leading the world on that. They opened and operationalised their deep geological repository earlier this year and have accepted waste, which is really exciting. There are other countries that are closely following, like Sweden. Canada's picked its site for its long-term waste disposal. And really, how waste is managed is about building transparent communication with the local population and educating them on how waste is managed and disposed of. I have a feeling it's the Netherlands. They've actually got their low-level waste in an art gallery, so it's transparent and on display to the public with artworks, because it should be normalised that we use waste all the time, and nuclear is not the only industrial process that has waste. Everything has waste. It's how do you manage it appropriately and safely, so that it doesn't harm the environment, and in turn, if it doesn't harm the environment, then it doesn't harm people.
In conclusion, if you can paint a picture in the future, if as the energy systems evolve, what do you think are the precursors or preemptive things to be done socially and from a community-wide conversation we need to have before the hardcore evolution of the energy system happen?
It's really about education, education and awareness. It is having transparent conversations with the community, and I love engaging communities that are curious about nuclear technologies, that come with an open mind, that come with really great questions, because the nuclear industry has made mistakes in the past, and we need to be transparent about what transpired and what have we learnt and how have we changed from that point on. And I think until the general public is more aware of how the industry has been shaped and how it is today, then they'll never be truly comfortable in embracing nuclear technology. For some reason, there are other industries in the world that can have big accidents where people are killed and nothing really happens. But in nuclear, the world almost stops as soon as an accident or incident occurs, and we learn and grow and evolve. And so it's how do we educate people around that and remove that fear? Because fear often comes from just the unknown. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Fukushima. Let's talk about Chernobyl. Let's talk about 3 Mile Island. Because there's no stupid questions when you're talking about nuclear activities. If you don't know, you may as well find out the answer, so you don't need to be terrified of it. You can be informed about it. And being informed about it allows you to make better risk-based decisions.
Yeah. Thank you, Jasmin, and thank you, Remy.
Thank you for enduring
the
chaos that is my life.
It is fun to have Remy on the set and in the studio to have this conversation, and he enjoyed it. I think so.
Oh, I think so too. He didn't want to go to sleep, even though he was meant to.
He was planned to be sleeping.
Yeah. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Remy. Thank you, Mum.
Thanks, Dev.